Everyone, welcome back to SAT Math Question of the Day. Here's our question of the day. It comes from an educator's site of the SAT. Spoiler alert, this question could possibly appear on a Blue Book test. So, take that into consideration. Okay, here we go. A psychologist set up an experiment to study the tendency of a person to select the first item when presented with a series of items. In the experiment, 300 people were presented with the set of 5 pictures arranged in random order. Each person was asked to choose the most appealing picture. Of the first 150 participants, 36 chose the first picture in the set. Among the remaining 150 participants, P people chose the first picture in the set. If more than 20% of all participants chose the first picture in the set, which of the following inequalities best describes the possible values of P? Wow, what an obtuse question. This is going to take, at least for me, it's going to take some time to put this together. What are we looking for? We have to look at what's being asked for. What best describes the value of P? So here P is directly something, P is directly to something. Here is P minus 20, P plus or minus 36. Okay. Among the remaining 150 participants, okay, what is this thing about 36? Of the 150 participants, 36 chose the first picture in the set. Among the remaining 150 participants, 36. If more than 20% of the participants chose the first picture in the set, 20% of all the participants, 20% of all the participants. This represents 20% of all the participants.
What's this you're talking about?
This. That represents 20% of all the participants. So just without doing a whole lot of careful thinking, my intuition is telling me that C and D are probably going to be one of the answers. Because those are the only answers that include this phrase, 20% of all the participants. So why don't we do this? Why don't we say P is greater than 20% of 300 plus 36, and P is greater than 20% of 300 minus 36. To make it a little more, and we're asking for what P is. Now it's time to reread the question.
Okay. My strategy, instead of fussing around here, is to go back and review the definition of P.
That's exactly what I was going to do. P among the participants among the remaining 150 participants, P people chose the first picture in the picture. P people chose the first picture in the set.
Among the remaining 150.
Among the remaining 150, right.
Well, how many people picked the first set among the first 150?
Oh, 36.
How many people among the remaining picked the first picture? It says P.
P.
So 36 picked the first picture among the first 150, and P picked the first picture of the P of the people among the second half chose the first picture.
Okay.
So the total number of people who picked the first picture is, you finish it.
I'm having a brain issue today with this question. I am getting overwhelmed by this, frankly. I'm sorry to say. Uh, of the 150 participants, 36 chose the first picture. Among the remaining 150 participants, P people chose the first picture. What are they even asking? Let me go back for a second. Let me invest a few seconds just to read the first line. A set up to study the tendency of a person to pick the first item when presented with a series of items. 300 people would Seth, we can't write that. You're over the line. You have to go you have to go right to the left. You can't see you. Okay. 300 people was presented. Okay. Each person was asked to choose the most appealing picture. So P was 36 for the first group. And we want to know.
Look at my picture.
Right. Yes. P is 36 for the first group. Right. So if more now.
P is 36. No, the number is 36 for the first group.
Right.
The number is P for the second group.
Now, if more than 20% of the participants, if 20%, okay, if more than 20% of all participants chose the first picture in the first set.
Look at my scribbling.
So P plus 36 has to be greater than 20 times 300. So you're saying that's the answer? D?
Yes.
I'm okay. I'm not there yet, but I will be soon. If P plus 36 if more than 20% of all participants chose the first picture in the picture set, which of the following Oh, right, yes. Right. Right. Because P plus 36 are all the people who chose the first picture. And all the people who chose the first picture in both groups is P plus 36. We see it here, P plus 36.
Yes.
If more than 20% of all participants chose.
So the bottom line, read it from left to right. P plus 36 is the number of people in the whole study who picked the first picture is greater than 20% of the total number of people in the study.
Right.
That's what it says.
So, Seth, you're bringing in a method I mentioned on a previous video, and if the question is obtuse, which this certainly is, restate it in words that are not obtuse, which is exactly what you said, Seth. What you just read was exactly very clear. If the total number of people who pick the first, if the sum of the number of people who pick the first study together, well, the sum of the number of people who pick between the two groups, if you add the people who picked the first picture in the first group plus the number of people who picked the first picture in the second group, they have to be greater than 20% of all the people. That's said very clearly, not in some obtuse way. Do you agree that this question is worded obtusely? And it could have, I mean, if like in a normal problem, if you're working with a team, you wouldn't use weird language like this. You would say things the way you said it. Like a normal person. Yeah. So everyone has to be ready for word questions like this, where I think the approach is to think about it and word it in a way that's very, very clear. And then it'll be very, very clear how to write the equation.
Yeah. Well, I think though, this problem is about whether you could read whether you can translate directly and accurately what you read in English into a mathematical statement.
Yeah.
I think when you read it and read directly what it says and then translate it into the statement, that's the way. That's the goal of this question is to test the subject's ability to do that.
The diagram helps, by the way. A little diagram helps. Oops, sorry about that, Les.
It helped me explain it to you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it could help someone figure out what the English means. You have to understand what the English means before you could translate it into math.
Okay. No, again, I think as you started, this is I think a good strategy for this question is to read the answers.
Yes.
But I solve the problem by reading the answers more deeply, by trying to read by reading from each answer what it said,
Right.
and recognizing the answer that said what the problem said.
Very, very
Rather
smart
than
idea.
looking at the answers and eliminating answers that did not include that had expressions that were different from expressions within the problem.
Right. Right.
So if
Yeah.
you read the bottom, it says P plus 36 is strictly greater than 20% times 300.
Right.
And that says the inequality that describes the situation. The situation is that the total number who made selection 1 is P plus 36,
Right.
is greater than 20% of the whole number of participants, which is 20% of and they tell you the total number is 300 right at the beginning. 20% of 300 is 0.20, juxtaposed with 300.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So once you see this critical sentence, then once you understand that this is the key, right, right there, right,
Yes.
right here. Right. You could also, I could see it being easier to understand that the number of people who chose the total number of people who chose the first picture in the picture set is greater than 20% of all the participants. That isn't that's first of all that's true, and that's what this says. This has it backwards. This puts the 20% first, which makes it sort of obtuse. It's a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner, isn't it, to say what this says, that the number of people who chose the first picture is greater than 20% of the total. That's just easier to understand, isn't it? Than to say if more than 20% of all participants chose the first picture in the picture set. At least for me. So anyway, okay, yeah. So this brings up a lot of powerful methods that one can employ in a what appears to be, and where really is a sort of a complicated word problem. And that you just first of all you have to try to understand it, but it really does, as Seth was right, it really does help to look at the answers and translate the answers into English and see which translation of the answers into English matches the translation of the problem into math, and you sort of meet in the middle. So that was a really smart way of doing it, Seth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I hope we explained how to do it to people. But But the picture really does help. That in the first group, the P is 36, and in the second group, the P is P. And basically, if you want to add P plus 36, which is the total number of people who chose the first picture in the picture set, has to be greater than 20% of the total people, which is 20% of 300. The of in percent questions, when you see an of, you generally 99.9% of the time you multiply the two numbers, the percent, the 20 times the number of participants, which are 300. Okay, so should we see how they did it? Or do we normally answer the four questions first, don't we? I think so. So first of all, calculator helpful, of course not. Main idea, Seth already succinctly said what the main idea was. What did the people who wrote this question want to see if you knew how to do? Seth pinned it right, nailed it right on the head. They wanted to see if you know how to read a word problem and translate English into math. Starting with a guess, absolutely. Seth was so smart to do that way. We explain why. Is there a pattern to this question? No, there's nothing special about these numbers that make it easier or harder. And is this different from a school test? Yeah, school teachers would never give a question this obtuse. Very unlikely.
Unless they read this resource and put it into their classes.
This resource is
because this resource is written for teachers.
Yes, this resource is written for teachers. So if
every teacher out there use this resource, really cool resource.
Yeah, particularly if you want to help your students prepare for the college tests. Not likely to see a question like this on the ACT, but you never know. Okay, so let's see how they did it. So we're going to clear all drawings. Now, we are going to have to change. Notice it was difficulty. We're going to have to just change the way we look. Okay. So we just moved ourselves around. Okay. Choice D is correct. Of the 150 participants, 36 chose the first picture, and the remaining 150 P chose the second picture. Whoa, they made a proportion. Hence, the proportion of participants who chose the first picture is P plus 36 over 300. Since more than 20% of the participants chose the first picture, it follows that the participants who chose the first picture has to be greater than 20%. Okay, so they did it as a proportion. What do you think of the way they did it? So,
that's good. It's okay.
Yeah. They definitely translated. They're showing how they translated English into math here. Yeah. So, and then.
But I think it's a good idea to identify in your mind and understand that there are two expressions of the same thing. The two expressions of the same thing are, what they said. To say 20% of 300 is 36 plus P.
Seth, you got to write lower. No one sees that. You have to write here.
Okay, you'll tell me.
That's what you write.
36. What they said. 36. 36 plus P over 300 equals 20%. It's the same thing as saying that 20% of 300 equals 36 plus P.
Yeah.
So the idea here is that if you have 20% of something is something else, the something else is that fraction. The number of something else's is that fraction of the total. And that's the same thing as saying that the ratio of the something else and the total, that ratio is related to 20%.
Right. Yeah. So they went directly
Same
for the
ideas. The
ratio.
same ideas.
They went directly to write the ratio.
Yeah. So if you know these two things, two expressions of the same idea, you could avoid the step of interconverting them.
Right. 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 It's good. The way they did it is pretty good because they wrote, if they translated this, 20% of all participants chose the first picture.
Yeah.
Who chose? These are the this is the ratio. This is really the ratio of those who chose the first picture. Ratio.
Yeah.
And that's what they said, right? That's what they said.
Yeah.
The ratio.
Yeah.
The proportion. Yeah. The ratio of participants who chose the first picture is this. So that's pretty easy to see. I mean, easy to understand. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. But your little picture definitely did help by breaking it up into two 150 cohorts. That's a fancy word, cohorts. And this one is 36, and this one's P. So then you add them, right? 36 plus P divided by 300, and you have it. The picture really does help. Try to draw pictures. Draw pictures always help, particularly in fraction problems. And you know, in some ways, this is a fraction problem. This is sort of a fraction word problem. Okay, so I think we're done, right? So I'm Joel. I have a PhD in mechanical engineering. You can see how I studied on this word problem. Seth is a PhD in math, and he has while I'm babbling along, he has the advantage of thinking about the problem without having to talk about it. Well, we try to meet to offer different approaches on how to do an SAT math question. We do one a day. We hope that we offered a bunch of ways to deal with word problems like this and for future tests, future problems that you'll practice. And talking about future problems to practice, you should do as many practice questions that the SAT offers, or as many practice tests as you can get your hands on. SAT gives you 6 of them. We've heard rumors that Blue Book 4 and Blue Book 6 on the math side are closest to the actual SAT in terms of difficulty. So please pay attention to those. And if you have any particular topics that you're weaker on, go to Khan Academy and the digital SAT course that they offer for free, and practice on the units and the topics that you're a little weak on, but also practice on the topics you're strong on, so you could do those much, much faster and very accurate, very precisely, get all your points on those and try to do those as fast as possible so you can save time and build up your points so that you have time to deal with the harder questions. So I guess that's it, right? And please just like our videos. We take all our comments very seriously. We try to answer every one. Sometimes it takes us a while, but be patient. We do answer every comment. And I guess that's it for today, right?
That's right.
Great. Okay, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Hope to see you tomorrow.